So this is my first time ever streaming. I realize it's not really streaming, it's just practice, kind of, if you will. I mean, it's not. It's Discord. There's probably not audio unless you're actually in the video, but I am recording this as well, and I'll put it up on YouTube, probably in multiple segments, and try to organize it later on. Alright, first I'll show you my screen. So that part's working. I've got Discord up on there. I realize I'm a little later than I meant to be, but made it nonetheless. So I have Discord over here. Should be streaming that output without a problem, which is good. Alright, so basically I have two monitors, and one of the monitors is being recorded by a Flint LX that's allowing me to do the stream. And how am I pulling this all off? Oh, I think Linux. I realize most people are Windows users, but I wanted to real quick give a shout out to Linux, because Linux is what made me the programmer that I am today. Prior to having Linux, I knew a little bit of HTML and was learning CSS. And then one of my clients needed more, so I started to learn some Linux, and I very quickly went from knowing no programming to learning PHP very well. To then I made Linux my primary operating system when Windows Vista destroyed one of my hard drives. So at that point, I installed Linux. That's why you can see the Linux Mint icon. And ever since, I've just learned so many programming languages. Python was a huge upgrade for me, but I had to learn how to use it with web browsing. And eventually I got out of not web browsing, but website design. Eventually I got out of website design. Just became too much with clients and stuff. And then I started just, it's my hobby, so I was like, alright, we will go ahead and make games. So, with that, I found a game engine that works very much like Python, and that's Godot. It has a language called GDScript, which is pretty much Python. Alright, today I want to show you basically what I do. I have Godot 3.2.2. We can show you that. It's a stable branch. Right now they're already working on 3.2.3. I just saw that it was release candidate already. I'll bring that up real quick. Number 6, I believe. So we'll do this. Drag this over here. So in their news, release candidate 5, sorry. But they're moving quick. There's a feature that I would probably like to get in there as a bug, but I just haven't had time to fix it. But maybe in the next couple days I'll get it fixed and get it into 3.2.3, which would be good for all of us. I also noticed that in the prior one, they were working on a backport for iPhone support, so that's going to be a big thing as well for us. Alright, where do you get Godot? Well, that's easy. Go to download from godotengine.org and just download the 64-bit or 32-bit for your operating system. You just click and it'll download it. The mono version we don't really need. We're not using yet in FreecoiL, but if you want faster, the mono or C-pound version is definitely the way to go. It will allow us to speed things up if we ever hit a wall with FreecoiL. But so far, the way that I use signals and stuff, haven't had a problem, and it's been great. Alright, so that takes care of that. I gave my shout out for Linux and told you how great Python programming language is. And at some point, I'm sure someone will join me, but I'm expecting them later on. Eric was talking about joining, and I'll talk with them later. For now, I'm just going to kind of move on to some of the things that you guys want to know. Is basically how do we get up in programming in FreecoiL. And a big part of that is getting started with Godot, so that's why I brought that over here. I will say that their docs, their documentation is top-notch, so if you go to Learn, it might not seem like it at first, but really they have this nice getting started, and it goes step by step, and it will give you an introduction to the editor. You don't need to read all these. Some of it's kind of intuitive. I mean, I think the editor was laid out in a way that I was quickly able to understand it. The scenes and nodes concept is great. Basically, you have nodes within nodes, and you have scenes within scenes. This allows you to start where there at the very top there's always a root, and then there's a scene, the root scene that you put in there. I'll get to that in a second. But then you can create scenes within the scenes so that you can save out functionality and then import, say, a sub-scene, if you will, into another major scene. So you can have that same functionality in multiple scenes, multiple major scenes. The same is true with nodes. Not that you can't export them, but basically when you are exporting a scene, you're exporting a node as a scene. So this is why that node and node thing works. They stack down, and then you just keep adding nodes for functionality. You can create your own nodes. It comes with a bunch of nodes. It's great for graphical user interfaces. It's also good for just general program or application design. They also have lots of tutorials to get you started. I like signals, so definitely give that a good read, and your first game will get you started literally on a nice little 2D game like FreecoiL is. But they also have more advanced ones as well. If we go on, they have full-on tutorials with 3D tutorials, because Godot is also a 3D engine. It's not known for its 3D power overall, but it's getting there. And I will tell you that the little bit that I've done in 3D, I was impressed. It was more than I was able to really utilize, because I need to learn to model things. On modeling, I like to use Blender. I do have it installed. I haven't really used it too much. I was practicing getting good with it, with just like the basic things, but I'm definitely not there. Not yet. But I will be one day when I have more time. Right now there's a whole bunch of code that needs to be done on FreecoiL, but the Blender 2.79 was a huge upgrade. Just in the way everything's laid out, it's much easier to use, and it's just a great upgrade for Blender. But yeah, creating 3D models and then import those straight into your Godot engine for use. Like I said, they have a full-up tutorial on, hey, this is how you're going to do 3D. They have your first FPS, so if you want to create a first-person shooter game, they actually walk you through that and tell you how to do it. That's why I say the documentation is top-notch. On top of which, if you're used to more standard documentation, it is all in there. It's just hidden under Godot API. But for instance, if you wanted to look up arrays, you can just type that in. They have a quick search feature now, which is this, pops up, and bam, we can go to arrays in GD script, and it will tell us how to utilize them. It will tell us all of their methods. Methods are functions that are the class uses. The class is an array, and the methods basically allow you to do different things, like tell its size, pop the front or back, which means take something off the back of the list or at the front, if you know what an array is. Basically a list of items. In Python, they are actually called lists. I'll give you a real quick python.org, because, again, I think it's a great programming language. That's python.org. And, probably didn't know this, but if you go back to Godot Engine real quick, there are a lot of languages incorporated, let's see, in Godot to include Python. It will talk about options, so don't know if it's going to be right here. I can go ahead and look it up quicker. Python Godot Engine. So this was a long time ago that the support was already baked in, 2017. It's not full up, don't get me wrong. It would require you to package your stuff a little bit, but it is there. It is at this guy's link. He's working on a full up upgrade for it. It's coming in the future. it will be a full-up language built into Godot as an add-on. On top of that, it doesn't matter what programming language you like, Godot probably has it. Even things like Godot or Rust, bam, it's there. All sorts of language options with bindings and everything to make that favorite language of your choice an add-on into Godot. Even Java is literally baked into the engine itself. So if we go to Godot, under Godot Engine, you can see if you go under Platform, we actually have under Android, no shit, Java. Sorry for swearing. Okay, so in here under App, there is actual source Java files. Basically, you can, at a worst case scenario, recompile the engine to include any kind of functionality you want with multiple languages and set up those bindings to make that work. I actually used to have to do this for FreecoiL when I first made it because I had to compile in my own Java bindings for FreecoiL. It got so much easier with the Android plugin upgrades that you don't have to worry about that. But I just want to let you know it's an MIT licensed game engine. All of the features are there. It's awesome. If you have issues with the game engine, don't fear. Just go ahead and put in an issue and create it. The community is great. They'll get back to you with possible workarounds and or fixing the bugs. Yes, there are a ton of bugs on Godot that are open, but not all of them are valid. To be honest, I'd say probably an easy 2,000 of them are completely invalid. The community is working on trimming this down, but there are so many new ones all the time. The fact that Godot Engine is currently in 2 major versions. There's the 4.0 version that's coming and the 3.2 series. 3.2 is currently the stable series. 4.0 is going to have Vulkan support. So they are definitely moving forward. The engine's getting a lot of community support and a lot of growth lately. So it's going to be doing great things. Speaking of GitHub, which we're on, it is important to know how to use GitHub. I use GitLab, so some of you have already become familiar with it. And on GitLab, FreecoiL is definitely there. I have lots of my own little projects that I use GitLab for. Many of them I keep private. So you got to know how to use GitLab or GitHub. I'll get back to GitHub in a second to go ahead and be able to create issues and decide which issues you're going to work on. If you are going to work an issue, just do me a favor and ask to be part of the team. I'll add you to the repository. You can see there are already multiple people that are members of this team. If they want to work on things, they can make that known through the issues and or Discord, ideally both, and then go ahead and create a pull request to add that. Okay, probably wondering what a pull request is, but let me get back to GitHub real quick first. On GitHub, I also have FreecoiL. That's right, I updated in both places. All right, I don't do the issue tracking over here. If you file issues, I'm just going to move them to GitLab, so don't count on that. Looks like someone just joined, maybe. Or, yes, okay. Asgaron is in the chat, probably listening right about now. We're getting set up. Okay, on GitHub, so like I said, I maintain it in both places. I backport the code from GitLab to here, but I do work on the GitHub side of things from work because it's the only thing I have as an option. Kind of sucks though because I don't have a full-up editor. You can only work on one file at a time. GitLab is definitely superior, but my work is currently blocking it, so that's that side of that. All right, how do we work with GitHub and GitLab? Well, you have to learn some Git. Okay, so what is Git? We'll jump over here, bring up a terminal. Like I said, I'm a Linux user. I love it, but you can do a lot of this functionality also on Windows. Also realize that Windows does now have a lot of Unix and POSIX support / Linux support with its command line that's coming along. So it's getting better in the Windows world, but I still prefer Linux. All right, I'm going to go ahead and CD. This actually works in modern Windows, like Windows 10 or better. Windows 7, I don't think it'll work. You'll have to figure it out. But you can CD, which is change directory. And then under here, I have my FreecoiL. And I'm going to go ahead and list that directory real quick. Alright, so list ls, that's what it is, at least on Linux. Just going to show me the directories. Now, for those of you who are not used to this kind of view, I will go ahead. Asgaron's trying to get his stuff all set up. Wait until I can actually hear him, though. Alright. So over here, I have lots of projects that I'm always working on, but I only have a few major projects. I try to keep that limited. Basically, what you are seeing right up here, you can see assets, recoil documents, releases, source, and source clone. Alright, those are the two I'm going to talk about big time, source and source clone. So what is source? This is a Git repository. How do I know that? Because it's got a .git file. Source clone is my clone repository that is for GitLab, or sorry, for GitHub. The source is for GitLab. Source clone for GitHub. Why do I do that? I find it's good to have multiple copies of code. It's good to have multiple repositories, and you use one as like your primary and one as like a backup. Because even though Git is version control, something could still happen. I've been programming for a while, and sometimes things go wrong. I also have a release folder where I create the release files and put them in there. You can see that that's 0.3.0 with an exe for Windows. There is also a x86-64, which is a Linux version. So yeah, if we double click that, you can see FreecoiL 0.3.0 official actually running on Linux. Like I said, dedicated server mode, as far as running on the platforms, it's already there. This would open in Wine, which is a Windows emulator for Linux. Wonder if it even works. I just click that, we'll find out. Wine is currently configuring itself, and we'll see if it actually opens it or not. Yes, you can do that. This is all the stuff that's going on with Wine. Okay, over here though, let's go ahead and CD into source. Alright, so now we're back in that source. Yes, we gotta install that. Alright, under here, you can do git commands, Git. Alright, so I hate to break it down to you guys, but Git is major for programmers. It's key. It is version control. I tried to use other version control systems, but Git is so dominant and so powerful that it is the de facto standard. And for a good reason. It has more capability and power than anything else.
Welcome to the FreecoiL command interface.
Alright, sorry about that. That's Wine. But yeah, it does work on Windows in Wine being emulated. Sorry about that. But that was just me showing that it could even run on Windows. Okay, back to what I was saying. Git is the de facto standard. So you've got to learn some Git commands. The good part is you only need to learn a few. And there are good software, there are a few good pieces of software out there like Git Kraken that you could use if you wanted to kind of stand in. Although I had problems with Git Kraken and eventually dumped it. Alright, so the biggest commands are git clone, where you would clone the repository. I'm obviously not going to do that because I already have my repository. I'll go ahead and bring up another window over here. Get that. Go. Bring this over here. And well, I've got a minute. Okay, no one's in there now. Must be still setting up this stuff. Okay, how would we do that? Well, there's a little clone button right here when you go to FreecoiL, and you can clone with SSH. Don't know what that is, use HTTPS. Okay, most of your Windows users won't use SSH. Secure a shell if you have it, but like I said, most of the Windows users won't have it, so you just copy that URL. Make sure that you're in the repository where you want to clone FreecoiL, and then you'll just go ahead and paste that on there, get to clone with the URL, and you're good to go. Okay? Alright, obviously, like I said, I'm not going to do that as I already have a repository. How do I know I have a repository? If I hit git status. By the way, if you just type in git, it will tell you a whole bunch of stuff it can do. Alright, so git status down here tells me currently on branch feature. right here. Feature initial GPS 1 from Origin. Origin is the GitLab version of my code. Okay. You don't really need to know too much about that, except for that you're going to get from a spot, which is Origin, and then you'll push to a different spot. The easiest thing for you guys actually to do would be to create a clone or a fork. Okay, so you fork it right here. All right, so you just hit that fork button, create your own clone of my repository on GitLab. And why would you do that, you ask? Well, Andre had one here. We'll go visit his version of my code. So if we go to Andre West FreecoiL, you can see he has a copy of it. His is way behind my branch. Let's see. Usually will tell you, don't see it here, telling us how far behind. But he last updated looked at 0.3.6, possibly. Yeah, dev 6, so quite a while ago from 0.3.0. Alright, so he would then download the repository and he would pull off of mine. So he'd clone off of this, but then you would pull, okay? What does pull mean? Well, if I want to make sure I'm up to date, oops, I gotta go to the right window here. Okay, screen. So get, pull, and then I can pull from my repository. I could pull directly from the repository by pasting it in there. It's already set as origin, so that's its default. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Already up to date. You can ignore this X11 forwarding request failed on channel 0. That's part of my SSH settings, and I have SSH set up with that. And mine is using get SSH. Okay, so it pulls it, tells me already up to date, and we're good to go. In your case, you'll pull from my repository. Why would you do that? Well, again, yours is a branch of mine now. Okay, so it's a fork from it. That fork can get out of date with mine. And you want to constantly be pulling from mine, but making changes to yours and pushing them to yours. So how would you push? Well, you would just push. There's nothing for me to change or push, so everything's already up to date. And if we need more tutorial on Git, I definitely can take the time to do that or help you guys out with it. But Git pull, again, pulling from mine or yours, depending on whether or not you're trying to keep yours in sync or if you're working on a side project. And then you're going to push, and then you'd make a pull request against mine. I think you could also just straight pull off mine. That's something we'll have to play around with and figure out what's best. When you want to do something, when you want to make your own feature, right? You should always be on master. So we would get checkout master. And it's going to literally swap everything over. Now I'm going to go ahead and close Godot, because Godot will start to freak out a little bit. Not a lot, but it will complain about the fact that I am basically changing all the source codes underneath it. It doesn't like that. Alright, checkout is a keyword that allows you to switch between repositories. On top of Git, I also like to use Git flow. You don't have to do this, but with Git flow, there's a whole site of shortcuts. Git flow cheat sheet. Just realized I don't follow Git flows full on. I actually use trunk-based development. I'll get on that in a second. I realize this is a lot, but that's what the point of this is. Okay, so go to the cheat sheet here. It was in a extruder view, but thought it was in a website. That's why I stopped for a second. But basically, they are going through the process of configuring your Git, which is helpful. Cloning something or initializing, then local changes. Let's see. Oh, this is just Git cheat sheet, not the Git flow. So let's try that again. Git flow cheat sheet. This guy? I think so. No, it's not that one. all sorts of good cheat sheets, by the way, out there. So I'm not the only person that can help you out on it. There we go. I think this is the one. Looks nice. That's not it either. I guess I should have already had this ready. Adelaide has a good site for it. This is the successful branching model, where you get this icon of it. All right. Tells you how to do it. Tells you how GetFlow works. Basically, you branch off, do your development, and then you branch back in. So you branch, get branch, develop, and that's really easy. With GetFlow, you want to make a feature branch. So I do like to go ahead and do that, and I will check out from wherever I am with a -B for branching, feature branch, and I will name it whatever I want. If you're using GetFlow directly, you use GetFlow feature start and then the feature branch name. So that's the code that I would use. But again, I'm not going to do that because I'm working on my own stuff. After you do some changes, so I'm going to go ahead and get checkout here real quick. Back to feature. Oops, get. Can tab for autocomplete, released on Linux. Alright, so I'm back on my branch, and if you make changes, okay, which is of course what you want to do, go ahead and start back up Go dot here and show you an example. I'll bring this back over here. Alright, if I make a change anywhere, Git is tracking all of this stuff. Okay, if I open Geodetic, there's no errors in it. Okay, I'm literally just going to add another new line right there. Save it. That's it. If I come on back over here and I say Git status, bam! It already noticed that I modified the file. Okay. To commit these files and push them up, you have to first git add. I like to use the star. Be careful with it, but great power comes great responsibility. If it's a dot file, what do you mean by that, Jordan? A dot file. Well, what I mean is if we have in the repository, we have a .gitlab folder and a .gitignore and .gitlab CI. So if I edit this file here, right quick, alright, and I just have another space right there. Let's save that. Alright, so I just edited that file, okay? If I come back over here and I say git status again, alright, because I did the git add star right here, it added the modified file, and now it's in green instead of red. Now this one is in red because I just modified it. So if I do the same thing, git add star, and check status, it doesn't work because it doesn't add star secret files, okay, or hidden files. Hidden files are anything that starts with a dot on Linux, okay? So instead, we have to do the name, .git. Alright, you could dot star it if you had multiples of them that you needed to, or you could just add a whole directory, all sorts of options. Again, if I add it, like I did, and now we status, it's green, okay? Once it's all green, it says changes to be committed, alright? So now we're ready to add some changes. We're going to git commit. When we do that, it brings us to this screen. It asks you to type in something. If you don't type in anything in here, and you just save the file, okay, it'll say aborting commit due to empty commit message. So you have to type something like just a demo commit. Control X, yes, write it, okay. It saves it, alright, and now it says, okay, made this commit, alright, it makes a number series here. This is a short hash of the commits and tells you what it did. 2 files changed, 2 insertions. Now, if I say get status, it'll tell me your branch is ahead of origin. Okay, that is what it means. That if I go back to GitLab here, back to FreecoiL, that change is not up here because my last one was 1 week ago. Okay, but if I wanted to go up there, then I have to say get push. When I do that, it pushes the changes, and if I come over here, refresh, and I'm not on master, but instead in feature initial 1. Now you guys probably don't believe me, but there it is, committed 1 minute ago. Okay, until that, it didn't have the change. Until I pushed, it wasn't there. GitLab will automatically start running the pipeline. What's the pipeline? What is all this stuff he's talking about? All right, so we have unit test, integration test, multiplayer integration, and multiplayer unit test. And then we have the build APK. Build APK is currently failing. I am aware. I'm working on it. I'm not super concerned about it. You don't actually need that to build the APKs because we can build it with Godot, and I can build them myself. All right, so that is basics of Git. There's a lot more to it, and you should take time to learn it. It's a really powerful tool. It's great in the way in which you can switch between things. When I do make some changes, I like to go ahead and merge them into master. So how do we do that? Real quick, get checkout, master. Okay. We'll kill Godot again because it will start complaining when it realizes that things have changed. And it won't really too much. Okay. And then to merge, we just say git merge feature initial. We're going to merge that other branch. It does not delete it, okay? It just merges it. It pulls and does a fast forward, so as long as there's not too many changes. I've had quite a few changes since this, so now it's going to push all these changes up, and they're going to go to master. So now if I get push, because, if we look, I'll prove what I was saying before. Go to FreecoiL on master, just because those changes have been committed technically. They're not there 1 week ago. When you fast forward, that is equivalent of a commit, okay? So fast forwarding is committing. So all of these are on my local one. If I get push, it's going to go ahead and say, okay, pushed them. And now if we refresh, over here, bam, 3 minutes ago, and again it starts the pipeline up. Back to the pipeline. Okay, the pipeline is basically a series of tests. You can actually click on them, and you'll see that it downloads a whole image of a Linux system, which happens to have Godot pre-installed with the requirements for building an Android APK, which is Android Studio. Speaking of that, real quick on the test. When I create new code, I try to create tests for it. I am not the best at test-driven development, but I do try to create some tests, especially if there's a bug. So if we have a recurring issue, I will definitely create a test for it and try to make sure that every time I run it, the tests are run. Running the tests, might as well. All right, so if we cd down to Python, or sorry, Godot, and tests, all right, within the repository, and then if we run Python 3 on, let's see, we're going to ls it real quick here, see what we got. Yeah, we'll run unit test real quick. So Python 3, run unit test.py. Alright, starts up a quick version of Godot, which has some unit tests built in, goes through and runs all the unit tests, and then tells me, alright, passing 60, failing 0. Good, that's what we want. All this extra junk down here at the bottom is normal. It's Godot's didn't release all of its memory before it fully exited the screen, but it's working on it. And basically that just happens after Godot exits and shuts down, lets the OS take care of the rest. So Memory leaks that they're aware of, they're working on grinding them out. So much development in Godot that they just can't do it all. But bam, that was a quick running of the test. I actually do have tests too that are the integration tests. So click on multiplayer integration test. It runs 3 versions of Godot. They're currently all running on my other screen. I'm going to drag them over here real quick.
You have now entered the player's lobby.
Mission objective.
But 3 of them
With the highest kill rate
play
wins.
at the same time. They shoot against each other and do a bunch of stuff. Okay, you've seen enough of that.
Tango down.
Go ahead and kill it. Bam. Just figured I'd show you guys that that's all there. What do I use that for? It is way easier to make an integration test than unit tests, in my opinion. Advanced programmer really probably shouldn't say that, but unit tests take so much time because you have to have something for every small piece of functionality. Whereas an integration test, I can build the whole functionality because then I know what I'm trying to get done, and then build a test that tests at its level. The integration level, the playing level, which is what matters to me, which is why I emphasize integration tests over unit tests. But really, unit tests are superior. I will give them that. And the reason is, you know that that lowest level functionality is working correct because you're testing it at the lowest level. So I do build both, and they both are there. And again, it depends on bugs or if I want to test functionality. Alright, that's a lot of stuff that we just covered. Going to also get into FreecoiL and coding on it. But I'm going to go ahead and take a break and stop the stream here for a minute, make sure no one's in there with me or has questions. Okay, yeah, no one's in there with me yet. So I will stop streaming, take a break, and come back. See you guys in just a few.